moving on. Hi, and welcome back to Plastic Models by a Regular Dude, and part number 3 of the Dragon 1/35th scale SdKfz184 Elefant. So in the last episode I left off with step 7, so I was able to get steps 1, which was the suspension, or the wheels, drive sprockets, 2, 3, suspension parts, 4, attaching the suspension parts, 5, which was some of the drive sprocket stuff and the mud scrapers, and 7, which was the tracks and installing the tracks. So just a quick summary, I ran into a little bit of trouble with these parts here. When I mounted them to the mounting points on the vehicle themselves, if this were the top of the vehicle, they were canted out quite a bit, and that was after having them bottomed out onto these parts. Now I don't know if that is a design feature of the Elefant, but it looked wonky, and I've never noticed it before on photos of the real deal or even other models. And I also had the added snag of the road wheels lining up with the drive sprockets. So like the drive sprocket was here, road wheels were here, so it's kind of cocked a little bit out, and the tracks wouldn't line up. So what I ended up doing in the last episode, and I'll add a link at the end if you want to go back and look at it, I had to saw all this stuff off and then put it back. And I won't get into the details of how I did it. I do show it in the previous video, so check that out if you want to know. And then it was a matter of putting the tracks on, and that actually went really well. I haven't done magic tracks in quite a while, years, and it actually worked out really well. Now normally, if you watch my channel, you know that I like to leave suspension components and tracks off until I paint all of the underneath. And I usually do from the sponsons down first, including any weathering that I want to do. On this build, I opted to try and do it the old school way, like some modelers will still do, but used to do, and that is build the whole flipping thing, then paint it with everything in place. So we'll see how that turns out. Shouldn't be too hard though. Yeah, so all that is on there and dried really solidly, so I am ready to move on. Okay, one other quick note is in step 5 or 6, it shows putting Zimmerit. It says shaded area intended for Zimmerit coating, please make with putty. Well, I'm not doing putty, and I wouldn't put putty just one part at a time anyway. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hopefully carefully install all the major parts first that need Zimmerit, and then install the parts that go on top of that, because I am, if you have been watching, I am going to be using photo etch Zimmerit. Okay, so hopefully, see, like for instance, let's take a look at this part right here, B5. That is the B5 part. That's where this would go, and it has cutouts for the parts. So I should be able to just glue the major components together, the superstructure, all of the major plates and so forth, and not have to worry about the small parts till after I glue all that Zimmerit in place. So let me get zoomed in here, and we'll carry on with step number 8. So in step 8, I need to cut off, or I need to prep B6, B7, and B5. Those are the parts that will have Zimmerit, and I will be putting those on first. Any sub-assemblies like this, I'm assuming it's an exhaust cover because it's got this ventilation, or might be intake. No, it should be exhaust cover. I'll do the sub-assemblies and stuff like that and have those ready to go. Toolboxes, anything like that. So let's go ahead and get these cut off. And like normal, if you don't watch my channel much, what I do is at the beginning of the episode, the first few parts, I'll show how I cut them off the sprue, how I clean them up, and how I have them, what tools I use and all that kind of stuff. So B6. So we got sprue B here. Using my cutter here, we've got B6, and generally, sometimes I don't, but generally I like to cut the parts away from, I like to cut the sprue gate away from the part, just because I like to cut and clean that stuff up. After the fact. So that's 6 and 7. Those come off together, and I'll show you what else we need to do. But so we got that, and then we have part number 5, which is this one here. Just cut them off like that. And then, using my finer cutter, I'll cut it up close here. Let's see. Yeah, I think those need to be cut off like this. So here, let me cut these off rough first, like that. And then this one here, this one's butted up right against it. So I like to I use my finer cutter, cut it off as close as humanly possible. Now I don't think, this is one of those things where it's not very clear. That could almost be mistaken for a locating point. However, I don't think it is in this case. No, it's not, because in looking at the hull, there's a raised tab here that matches with a cutout there. So anything left right there would get in the way, so that needs to come off. So for this one, I'm going to cut it flat like this. And then this one here, that, like that. Whoops. Same for this one here. You'll have to excuse my cat. She's feeling pretty needy right now. Like that. And like that. Like that. Now remember, I'm only doing all of this tedious work probably just on these few parts here, unless I run into something that needs special care. So it'll move along faster with the other stuff once I get this cut off. Like that. Then, whoops. It's going to need some sanding there. All right, so there's those. So for the sanding, I'm going to be using my 400 grit Infinity model Ultra Precision Series sanding stick. After I cut this bit off with a knife. been keeping it as flat as I can. Sand that smooth. Now you can see there's still some white there. That's just stress on the plastic. It's not actually residual plastic. It's just stress from the cutting process. Just continue sanding that down. Now, I mentioned this quite a bit too, especially early on. And this is for some of people who might be new to this kind of stuff. Don't know if you can see it on screen, but you see some shiny plastic right here and dull plastic around here. Whatever the sander is sanded will be dull. So it kind of gives you a good indicator of when you've got it sanded down and ready to go. It's kind of handy. Okay, there's that. That one. And I'll do the same thing on the other part. Alright, so now we can test fit this stuff. So we've got this one here. Boy, I was having a hard time visualizing that one. Okay, so that fits there. Now that is kind of there's a bit of a gap right there. Don't know if that's going to be an issue. Okay, it matches up on the outside, so we're okay. This is all a pretty positive fit. This part right here butts up against this part here. This part, as I noted, fits here, so it should be good. So I'm going to push it all into place, make sure it's really tight. Again, something I always talk about at the beginning of my videos, proper usage of Tamiya Extra Thin. Now, other people do other ways, and it works just fine for them mostly, but this is the proper way to use Tamiya Extra Thin or any other really fine liquid cement like this. Put the pieces in place and touch the seam. Capillary action will pull it through the joint, giving you a nice firm bond. Okay, so I also need to do it over here. Like that. Now, one thing that's nice about this side part right here is the fact that it has this locator here, which helps to make sure that it is properly lined up on the outside of the vehicle, like that. So that's kind of cool. All right, so there's that. Make sure it's pressed down really well. There's a bit of a gap there, and I think that would probably have to be taken care of on, say, a Ferdinand, which doesn't have Zimmerit, but in our case, the Zimmerit will probably cover that over. If not, then we'll have to work on it, but it should be okay. All right, so then we got this one here, which is basically the same exact thing. Now, I'm not sure if that's supposed to be flared out like that. So what I'm going to do, before that sets up, I need to, well, I can probably tell from this right here. Well, it fits pretty snug on there, so that may be correct. Yeah, and it does look like it, so well, we're gonna go with it. You know what, one thing I can do though, before I commit to all that, this is jumping ahead in the instructions, but let's get this and fit it on here and see what it looks like. Okay, that all overhangs, so I'm just gonna have to go with yes, it's supposed to be like that. So we've got that one. We'll get this one. I'm not real familiar with these elephantine vehicles such as this and the Ferdinand. My first one ever built. So any of you guys know out there and viewer land, you can say, hey, you blew it, you shouldn't have done it like that, and I'll weep and gnash my teeth and all that kind of stuff. I wonder what the purpose is of engineering this in that way. Seems kind of weird, but who am I to question? That's, and like that. Okay, looks pretty good. So I'm going to let that set up for a few minutes before I monkey around with the back plate right here. So while I'm letting that set up, I can go ahead and I generally like to do things like in order, but sometimes it's just necessary. I can put this part together right here. So we have B19, B9, B20, and then you can either use the kit part, which is B10, or MA40, which is one of the photo etch pieces that come with this kit, which is what I'm going to use. So let me cut these off, B19, B9, and B20. Hopefully that was in frame. One more time, B19, B9, B20, and MA40. Okay, so now let's take a look at some photo etch. So some years back, I did a video called How I Deal with Photo Etch, and it's one of my most watched videos. I think it's my second most watched video behind my review slash talk about the Pache H single action airbrush. And in that I demonstrated the techniques that I used to deal with photo etch. Now the thing is a lot of that's changed. I used to use a piece of tile and a rounded X-Acto blade to cut these parts off, and all I really ended up doing was dulling a lot of blades. So I just went to this small cutting mat because I've never really had a problem with parts getting bent. That's part of the reason people like to use a solid material. Now you could use like a piece of acrylic or something like that, and that would be great because it's not as hard on the blade. But a piece of tile or glass, that it just dulls it. Now there's a lot of people that do it, and that's fine. That's the way I used to do it, but I just don't find it really that necessary anymore. So what I normally do is once a blade has worn out on my plastic cutting knife, I will, whenever I replace this blade, I'll take that blade and put it on my handle marked PE for photo etch, and it's still just great enough to work on photo etch, but I don't use it on plastic, and then that way I don't dull my other blade quite as much. So what I do is I take the blade and I push it up against the part close to the little, it'd be the equivalent of a sprue gate on styrene parts. I just move it over to where it's flush and then just push it through. Doesn't take much and it won't bend the brass. And I've used lots of different brands, so it's not that big a deal. And there you have it, all cut off nicely. Now the next thing is there's still just a little bit of a burr there from that part. So what I do is I have this, and you can use a number of different things. Like I got this from a craft store, and it's just a smooth jaw plier, which does kind of the same thing as this right here, this bending pliers. This bending pliers is good for bending long parts, but it's also good to hold parts in order to take care of that little burr. But I'm going to use these this time just because they line up side by side, sideways a little bit better. And then I just clamp the part, hopefully. See how this one does it? Right there. That's not going to work. Scratch that. Let's go back to this one. Maybe there was a reason why I should have just stuck with this one. If I get as close to the edge as possible, hold it tight, and then you can use a file if the burr's really bad. But a file seems to snag a little bit more, so what I like to use are these little sanding sticks here. They're thin, they're really cheap. Any sanding stick will work, but it's usually enough, and it pretty much rubs the stuff off. But get that little burr off of there, and then I'll do the same thing up here. And I like to keep as close as possible because it minimizes the chance of bending the part. That's another reason I like using this instead of a file. Sometimes a file can grab, and if it's not close enough to the edge, if it's not held close enough to the edge, then it can bend the part. Okay, there it is, smooth. So I'll do the other side, and then we'll glue this thing together. All right, so this is ready to glue together. So let's put the side pieces on first. And you've got this part here, and it's got a little bit of weld detail on there, so it's pretty groovy. Now see, looking at this right here, when it's glued in place, it's not really fitting in there the way I want it to, okay, because that weld detail should be up against that part there, and it's not quite like that. It's okay on the bottom, but not on that upper part. So what I'm going to do, using my sanding stick, being careful to only sand this back edge here, not where the weld detail is, but this back edge here. I'm going to sand that back to where hopefully it will fit a little bit better. Let's see if that helps. Yeah, see, that's much better already. Use a little bit more though. like that. See how that looks. Okay, yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah, that looks good. So then I need to hold it in place. You know, let me demonstrate something else. Now here's where, because sometimes people like to take the Tamiya extra thin and they'll put it on there and then they'll fumble around and get the part and put it in place. The problem with that is this stuff evaporates really quickly. Sometimes you don't get a really good bond, but it is handy sometimes if you want to tack a part in place like that. Just put that on there like that. Get it tacked in place, make sure it's all lined up. Like that. And then do like I demonstrated earlier. Then touch it in there and it'll really give you a good bond. Like that. Okay. So let me glue this other one on here after I get the edges sanded. Okay, so now I'm ready to glue this piece of photo etch in place, and for that I'm going to be using my black slow dry super glue cyanoacrylate. So here's some things to remember when using these photo etch parts. There is a front and a back. Okay, now you may not be able to tell in the camera. Let's see if I can get it up closer. Now, I don't know if you can see, but that mesh, all of that surface right there is really super smooth. That's the back side. The front side, you get a little bit of depth. So the mesh is kind of recessed from this framework a little bit, and it does have a little bit of texture as if this is interwoven mesh, if that makes sense. So that's something to keep in mind when using stuff like this, especially for grills, engine cover grills and stuff like that. All right, so what I do is I put a little bit in this little lid here. Make sure the top is wiped off before I put the cap back on. And then, using my handy dandy high-tech applicator here, wherever that mesh is going to be sitting, I'm going to put some of this super glue. Like this. I like this slow drying stuff because you still have to work fairly quickly, but it's not as crucial as if you're using regular super glue. Okay, now making sure I have the right side up. Put it in place like that, and then using this into this straight edge here, push it into place. Hold it there for a few seconds, and not quite. Let that cure up. There we go. Okay, so that is all glued in place. Now the next thing to do for this sub-assembly is there is a toolbox that goes on there's a toolbox that goes onto that exhaust cover or whatever it is right there. And you have two options. You can either use the photo etch version, which is here and looks quite dandy indeed. Or you can use the kit supplied part right here, or you could use a combination of both. You could use this if you don't want to have to assemble this thing, because honestly, and I've never done it, stuff like this is better served being soldered, just so you get those corners and edges to look like, you know, they're truly I may take it apart and super glue it and show you what I'm talking about, but it's a little bit trickier, and I'm not sure it's something I want to tackle. I mean, because I'm definitely not going to do the super glue thing, or the what do you call it, soldering thing. It's just not my forte. However, I think I will try and see how that turns out just with super glue, and show how you use the bending tool and all that kind of stuff. But what I'm probably gonna end up doing is using the kit part, but I will utilize the photo etch parts that make up the hardware, the hinges and the hasps, because that's a nice way to be able to get a little bit better detail out of the kit part, which really isn't that bad. I mean, the kit part looks pretty good actually, but it could look a little bit better. So that's what I'm gonna do. Cut this off, cut that other part, show how we're gonna do that. Okay, so here we go. All right, so let's see. So on these things, there's like a little bend mark. Now, this these are supposed to be reinforcing ribs for that lid, and that needs to go on the outside, so we need to bend everything accordingly. So I'll hold this like this and bend it over to 90 degrees or thereabouts. That's about 89 degrees maybe. I'm kidding, I can't tell. Okay, then bend this. Let's see, let's go ahead and bend this. Like this. Needs a little bit more. This, we're really only going to get to start it because it's going to hit on this stuff here, but at least I can get it going in the right direction. And then I'm going to use this here mat to kind of smash it down there like that, and like that. And then I'm just going to use my thumbnail and kind of really get it where it needs to go. Carefully, carefully. That actually looks pretty good. I may end up using this after all. The trick though is going to be getting this lid bent enough to where it looks closed. Okay, that all looks pretty good. So now I'm going to take this what I can do here, now we're learning this together, folks. I haven't done too many photo etch items like this. So kind of pull that out a little bit like that, and then try and push that like that. What I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to get it bent just a little bit past 90 degrees. So when I Now, one thing to keep in mind here, and I'm not trying to make an excuse for sloppiness, but some of this kind of stuff you can kind of be a little bit okay with it not being perfect because it is sheet metal, and unless it's fresh out of the factory, it's not going to be perfect. There it is. So let's see. So we want this to kind of be inside of here a little bit. I'm trying to do this without getting any kinks or anything. Okay, there we go. There we go. That looks fairly good. So that lid needs to be kind of inside like that. So now what we need to do is somehow get this glued and have it stay. So, because this kind of hangs over a little bit, and then the hinges go down here because it opens like that. So, okay, so we got that. So here's what I'm going to do. I've got some thin super glue and some of these applicator tips. So that's what I'm going to use to apply the CA glue, because it'll pull it through just like it does with the Tamiya Extra Thin. Okay, so let me get all this set up and then we'll give it a try. All right, here we go. So what I'm going to do, man, I hope this doesn't get on my fingers, but I'm going to use this. Hopefully this will work. Oh, yes. See, that drop came out on the very tip of that and went flying right through all that. So I'm going to hold this for a minute and come back. All right, so we have success. That side is glued, so now I just need to do this. So I'll do that off camera, but well, I'll just do it on camera. I'll just turn it off once I let it start drying. Hold it in place. All right, there it is. So now all I have to do is just cut off the hasps, which are 2 parts, and the hinges. So let me get those cut off and get those prepped, and then I can put them in place. All right, so the hinges are on here, and there's fingerprints and junk all over, but once all this stuff gets glued into place, I'll be cleaning all this with alcohol in preparation for priming and painting and all that. But so you can see, oops, you know, the kit part is not bad really, but I don't know, I think this will probably look better in the end. So the next part I need to do is I need to make the hasps, which is photo etch part MA8 and MA23. Okay, so I got the hasps on. I couldn't show it on camera because my camera angle was wrong and blah, blah, blah. So with all of that done, I can now, and since this has had, you know, overnight to dry, I can put this, I can glue this back plate on right here. So let me get this out of the way and let's take a look. Let's see how well this is going to fit. Okay, we got some wonkiness going on here. I was afraid of that. So these side pieces here, I don't know if they're supposed to be angled like that, but it's just they're not. They only fit one way. So what I'm gonna have to do, I think, is I'm gonna have to trim this off here because it shouldn't be hanging over. So I'm gonna have to trim it here and here. It even looks like the molding might be a little weird. Like there's extra plastic there. I don't know. But it will be interesting to see how... Okay, this goes here. So let's see how this looks. Okay, it's fine. Yeah, it actually fits pretty good. So let me monkey around with this a little bit and see how it's going to fit. Okay, it looks like the top parts fit okay. Still not convinced that's 100% right, but it fits. So man, that's just not sure. So there's going to be some surgery probably going on here. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to trim this stuff off here so this fits like it's supposed to, because these two little tabs fit here, here, and here, and then these fit here. So yep, I'm gonna have to do a little work on that. So let me trim this off, and basically all I'm going to do is I'm just going to use my knife and trim that stuff down to where it's parallel to this. Okay, that did it. That fits much better. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue it in pieces. I'm going to do this down here first, clamp it really tight, then I'll glue these and put them in place. And those must need to be flared out like that because it fits the width of this perfectly. So I think I'm okay. So for this, I'm going to use this glue here. Now, on that tail piece, there's like all these indentations here, but it looks like nothing is supposed to be drilled out, so I should be okay. Before I glue it on, though, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the pieces off for this from the photo etch fret and make sure that they fit like they're supposed to, and I'm not going to have to do anything weird. So without boring you with watching me do it again, I'm going to be using the same method to cut this this photo etch off of here, and I'll cut that off. We'll come back in a minute. Here's something interesting that I did not notice. Apparently photo etch goes on this piece as well, on the sides and on the front. So I am going to have to do that as well. So let's start with that. So for that part, I need photo etch piece number 7 and 27 and 24. So 24 looks like this one right here, and then 7 is, oh no, that's 27. And I don't see one for the other side, so that's kind of weird. Oh, there it is. 7 right there. All right. So let me cut these off and get them cleaned up, and I'll come back. Okay, looking at this side, the sides seem to fit really well, so that shouldn't be too big of a deal. Let me see if I can show you here. I think I'm gonna have to do some scraping and sanding there because those pieces are flared out a little bit. So what I'm gonna do is using a knife, scrape the inside edge. Like this, try and get it smoothed down. Like that. So let me do both sides. All right, so what I'm going to do before I get onto that back plate is I am going to put this photo etch on this part. So the first thing I need to do is I need to remove this little locating line here. It's like a little ridge, it's raised detail to help line up the kit supplied toolbox. Okay, not this one, but the styrene one. So this is the first thing I need to do because I want this part to fit on here really flat and smooth. So basically I'm just going to scrape it off. I don't have to be real super careful and worry about it looking good because it's going to be covered by the photo etch part, Zimmerit. So I just need to make sure I get all of that off. Then the next thing I need to do is I need to be careful and not knock this part off, which I almost did just now. So in looking at where this goes, it fits like this. Okay. So what I'm going to do is, since I want to make sure this top part fits as close to perfect as possible, I'm going to glue this part first with some super glue. I'm just wondering if it'd be better to put this in place and then put this on there. Let's take a look, shall we? Oh, whoops. Let's do it like this. So that goes there, and then this goes here. Because that way I could make sure it's butted up against this part here. Let's see, how's that look? I don't know if it'll really make that much of a difference. So even if it does, I can do a little bit of filling with putty. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make sure that's like up there whenever I glue it on. I'm going to hold on the sides to make sure the sides are flush. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue this on here with some super glue. I'm going to let it cure up really good, and then I'm going to bend this down around here and clamp it with these little clamps here. Like, maybe like that. I might do it sideways like that just to get it to clamp. Yeah, so anyway, I'll clamp it. So what I need to do first is I need to get some super glue on here, and I guess I'll probably use this stuff here again. So I'll put that on there like that. And what I want to do is I want to make sure that I get it on there and it's really thin, so it lays as flat as possible. And I want to make sure it's all the way to the edges. Some might ooze out, but that's cool. I should be able to trim it off. Okay, that should do it right there. Oh, crikey. Okay, so now let's put this in place here like this. And the nice thing about this black super glue is you have time to move it around and make sure it's where it needs to be. So that's in place. So let me put it on here and see how it fits. Ooh, that looks good. Yeah, I'm digging that. So I'm gonna let this dry really good, and then I'll bend this over and glue that, and then I'll glue these sides on. So while that's drying, let's see if there's something else I can do. Yeah, let's work on this a little bit. Okay, I've got it all cleaned up. So let's take a look here. Okay, again, we've got some raised detail that needs to be removed. So I'll scrape the, actually, I'm gonna use this blade here to scrape it off. And there's also some up here that needs to be scraped off, so might as well do it now. So I'm glad I've decided to do this before I got this in place, because this would have been a pain to take care of in situ. Okay, so this one fits here. And it fits really well. I'm really kind of digging, I mean, I've only done a few parts so far, but these parts really seem to fit well where they're supposed to go. The cutouts are like dead on. So that's kind of cool. So same thing. Let's see here. I mainly want to make sure it's really good along the edges. Now, for stuff like this, you could also use regular old PVA glue or white glue. Make sure it's smashed down all the way around. Looks good. It's even got the overlap for right here. So I'll be making sure that that fits good. Okay, that looks pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to clamp this just to make sure it's stuck on there really well. I'm going to clamp it there and there. This probably isn't really necessary, but better safe than the sorry. So I'll let that set up for a few minutes. All right, here we go. So I've started bending this around, and I'm glad I chose to do it like I did. But it fits really good down there, so down low, so it should be okay. So what I need to do now is I need to get some more of this here black CA. And put it along the edge here like this. Not worried quite so much about up higher, although I will spread it around evenly, but making sure I get it on the edges. And then see if I can clamp this to where it's going to work. That looks pretty good. That looks pretty good. I just got to figure out how to get, oh, you know what? Perfect clamp right here. One of these Tamiya clamps. Right there in the middle. So now we'll let that cure up. All right, so I've got the two pieces cut for here, which are numbers 14 and 15. Now, it calls the photo etch instructions instruct me to remove this part of this thing here. So from here down, I need to cut that off. All right, so for cutting that off, I'm going to try out a new tool here for me. And it is these Tamiya saw blades. And they look like this. Pretty cool. And they're made to fit just a regular X-Acto blade. Talk about it more in an upcoming update video I've got. But just a real fine saw. I could probably do it with a knife, but I want to get some of these saws, so I did. So let's see how it works. Almost through. Looks pretty good. Nice clean saw cut there. Okay, that's probably deep enough. Now I can use my cutter and cut this off the rest of the way. Hopefully. Let's see. Again, you know, I want to be careful, but it's not as crucial that this be totally perfect. Because I am, whoops, putting Zimmerit over this. Now here's where it gets tricky. I don't want to chop my hand, so let's see if I can do this. Notice I am trying to cut away from myself. Oh, there we go. Good deal. There we go. Splendid. And then that wire can stay there because it is okay. There we go. So let's see how that fits. Like a glove. I'm going to have to cut this a little bit off here. Nice. Okay, that fits just like that. So I can glue that on there, and then this piece here goes here. Whoops. Again, it fits really well. Just have to make sure I get it on there. Parallel. I want to make sure this edge here is the most lined up. Yeah, it looks good, man. I'm what you call stoked about how this stuff's working out so far. Okay, this one goes. Whoops. See? Got a little bit of time to maneuver it around. So there we go. Sweet. So there's that one. And there's that. So, as they say, stoked. And as you can see, this fits nicely there. So I think I'm going to go ahead and glue that in place before I glue these parts on. Let's see how they fit. This may seem like a really lengthy process, and it is, but a lot of my viewers like to see what I'm doing, so that's why I'm really, yeah, I'm gonna glue those on afterwards. So, oops, what I'm gonna do here, using my Tamiya extra thin, I'm gonna go ahead and that there. And there. Some there. Put some there. Whoa. Put some there. Okay. And let that dry. Alright, so here is the back. Everything's done on the back as far as the Zimmerit goes. So there's actually a few other parts that need to go on here. And you know what? I think I'm going to do those first. So we've got, I'm not going to do these yet. Yeah, I think I am. I may have to clamp that, so I'm not going to put, I don't know. Let me look. I'm undecided, folks. Sorry. A wishy-washy host of the Plastic Models by a Regular Dude show. Nah, I can glue this in place first. Yeah. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to glue this bottom part first. Then I will glue these parts here. So let's see here. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. So using this cement here, put some on here like this. Into place, make sure it's pushed in there tightly, and then let's see, hold this in place for a few minutes. So in order to ensure that that is really pinned down back there, I put these clamps on it so I can let that dry, and then once that dries, then I'm going to switch the clamps to the top here and get all this glued into place. Hold it in tight. So while that's drying, I'm going to go ahead and work on the jack block here. And that, I can either use it right out of the kit, or I can use the photo etch parts. So B18, so I'm going to go ahead and cut all these parts off. That's what it boils down to. Cut all these parts off and get it ready to assemble. Alright, so the next thing I'm going to do is, it doesn't say to do it in the instructions, but the parts just won't fit properly if I don't do it. And that's trim off this raised ridge around the edge to just make it just a plain flat block, because the photo etch parts are going to make up the details. So I'm going to cut those off and sand it and get it ready, and then I can start gluing the photo etch on. Okay, well, so what I'm doing here, I got all that off. Now I'm doing the reinforcing bands, wrapping around it. So I've been doing it off camera because it's hard to do it without getting my head in the way. But basically just putting the CA on there, and then holding it in place and hoping it sticks. Without sticking to my tweezers too much. Yeah, it worked. So I'm going to finish this up. And there we go. That part is done. So now I need to, there's a carry handle that goes on the side. Now, in looking at the instructions, it shows you to put it on this side, but every photo I've seen, it's on this side here. Like between the straps instead of on the side over here, if that makes sense. So that's what I'm going to do. Photo references. They are your friend. Most of the time. So let me cut that off. All right, the next sub-assembly I need to work on is the jack. So I need to put all of the plastic parts together and then get all of the photo etch parts bent and ready to go. So I'm going to cut off all the parts here and then start working on the photo etch. Okay, I got all the parts cut out here, so now we can glue this thing together. So we've got this goes on top of here, maybe. Oh my goodness. This is just comical. I guess it's good it was doing that because I was putting it on upside down. So, oh my goodness. Okay, there's a pin there and a hole there, so that's where it goes there. There, and there. So, I'm going to use my, to be extra thin, and there. Okay, then this piece here doesn't look like there's a top or a bottom. It's going to fit right here. I'd like to have a jack like this to work on my car. That'd be awesome. Probably way more than most of my car, but it's pretty cool. Okay, let's put a little cement right there. And just for safety's sake, give that a little squeeze. Like that. Then this piece here has a little burr on it, so this should be fun cleaning this off. Okay, there we go. Whoops. So that's gonna go there. Like that. And then boy, I'm having a hard time holding on to this part. This goes, now there are 2 holes there, 2 pins there. However, in flipping this over, there is an ejector pin mark there that is kind of, yeah, protruding. So I need to carefully, and hopefully without slicing my finger, there we go. Let's see if that's all the way down. There we go. So this goes here, so let me fit that. Yeah, it fits good. So what I'm going to do there, though, instead of using extra thin, I'm going to use some of this just because I can. It's not necessary. I switch up cements quite a bit. Probably don't need to that much, but I've got it, so I might as well use it. Okay, like that. And then this handle here. Goes right here. Maybe. Oh, there's a little bit of sprue gate left on there. That is a very snug fit, but that's kind of cool because these things are always a pain in the left elbow to get in place and have them set up right. Oh, that's good. All right, so a little bit of extra thin here, just to make sure it doesn't come off. Like that. So there's that. So I can let that dry while I cut off the photo etch parts. All right, folks, full disclosure, I broke the photo etch part, so I am having to use the plastic part, at least the back part of it. The front, I'll use the remaining photo etch part that's supposed to be used on this part, but it happens. And you know what? I ain't gonna let it ruin my day, because I'm cool like that. So this will go here like this, and I'll glue that in place, and then the photo etch part, like the holder, will go across that. So not like totally awesome, but like I said, stuff like that happens. Okay, so I got that glued into place. Looks squared up and everything. So now I need to cut the other bracket, which is MA27. And that is right somewhere, right there. So this one's got side folds and everything else. And the next piece, once you get it all bent up, looks like this. So I need to get this part popped on the outside of this. There we go, just like that. Now I'm going to attempt guys, people, hopefully I'm not getting my fuzzy head in the way, but there we go. Okay, so that's what I want right there. So now I'm going to take my cement, my super glue, and try and get this thing glued in place. So let me get that prepped. Sorry, I did that off camera. I put a drop on there, I think. Nope. Okay, so let's get, there we go. There we go. All right, so there's that. So let's see if that sticks. And while that is doing its thing, I'm going to cut the little cover plate right here, which is part... Now, I don't know. I don't remember seeing a bunch of other toolboxes and stuff. That's MA1. But, yeah, there we go. There it is. So let me cut this one off while that's curing up. Just for the record, take note of my CA bottle here. I've had this thing for quite a while, and notice how clean it is. And you know, I'm not bragging or anything, but it does really help with the lifespan of your CA glue, because you know, I know lots of people have problems their CA glue not lasting long, but if you keep it clean, and it's not really hard to do, it will stay good. I mean, I've had this for a long time, and it's still perfectly thin, and you know, all that kind of business. So just a tip. It is possible to keep big bottles, well, bigger bottles of CA glue for a while. All right, so here we go. Now I'm going to put that other little piece in place. Notice this one's really clean too. After a little bit, I'll chip some of that off of there just so it's neater. But again, I take care of my paint and adhesive bottles. Can't help it. It's an affliction. All right, so I'm going to put a little bit of black CA there and there. Okay, technical difficulties. So you missed the big flipping my tirade on super glue bottles and gluing that on. Basically all I did was cut it off, use some of my black super glue, and dropped it into place. And since it wasn't going on video, it worked perfectly the first time. So there you go. So now with that next sub-assembly done, I am ready to move on to, I think, gluing all that stuff onto this back plate. Before I start gluing all those parts on that back plate, I have a few more Zimmerit parts to glue on. So I'm going to cut those off, get them ready. There's two parts, number 3, a number 34, and a number 32. Okay, so I've got them. I've got them cut out. Now see, this seam right here is going to be covered up by a piece of Zimmerit that I just dropped. So that's going to go there, and I want to make sure that I get it lined up with this one here really well. Okay, that actually looks pretty good. So I'm going to get my and there we go. Those are all glued in place. So now I can start cutting off all of the rest of the parts that need to fit down in here. So let me get those cut off, and then I'll come back and we'll start assembling all of that. All right, I got those glued in place. Hopefully I won't knock them off. So next I need to put these in place and hope that these parts here clear those parts I just glued in. Okay, next up, glue these in place. Let's hope it works the first time. Let's see, I want to do this one on this side. Okay, so I had some glitchy business going on with this camera on my phone, so all of this didn't get to see. These parts, whatever. It all went on fine. So now I need to glue on parts B24 and 23, which are I don't know, towing point or something like that. I don't know what you'd call it, but that needs to go on next. So put a little bit of cement on here so I can tack it in place. And let me make sure I've got it going the right direction. Yep, it goes like this. This L shape faces the bottom of the vehicle. Okay, make sure this is lined up properly. Okay, that looks good. And then this one here, fits there. So I'm going to put a little bit of cement in there to tack it in place. Maybe there we go. And then like that. So it looks like the last parts I need to do are the jack block, the jack, and the toolbox. So let's do the jack first, and that the handle faces up. So hopefully I have enough room . looks like we're good there. So get some of this stupendous glue here. Like this. That, and then using the tweezers, I will carefully put it in place, thusly. Success. All right, and then the track block, or the jack block, it goes over here. Okay, so let's get some super glue going on here. Like that. So let's see what we got here. That looks pretty good. All right, so I'm going to let that stuff dry before I flip it over and put this, well, you know what? I just lost the hinge. Great. Crisis averted. I found the hinge. So I'm going to let that dry. Then I'll come back and install it. Oh, I almost forgot. There's a long strip that goes right along here. So I need to glue that on. So I'll give me some more black super glue out here. And I'm putting this on a little bit heavier because hopefully if there's a seam there, this will kind of help fill it in a little bit, and once primer and paint gets on it, it won't be as noticeable. If I remember, I'm gonna put a link to another build of an elephant very, very similar to this. I'm gonna make sure it's okay with him first, and if so, I'm going to put a link at the end of this video or in the description or something, because he is building one and he is doing his Zimmerit with putty. So he is somewhat a superhero in my eyes. So you can check out what he's doing. And it's funny because I watched his video and he's doing it pretty much the same way I am, as far as, you know, oh, come on. Okay. But anyway, I'll try and remember to put a link. All right, so now I need to do put the toolbox on here. So it will be interesting to see how well this sticks. Being so smooth on the back here. I could have scuffed it up some with some sandpaper or sanding stick or something, but I didn't. So we're just gonna have to go with this. And that looks pretty good. Okay, now let's see. Let's look over the instructions here and see if I missed anything. And it looks like the only part I have left to glue on is this right here, which I think is, I'm pretty sure it's a light block. Tail lights, marker lights, convoy lights, whatever you want to call it. I don't know. But I got to glue that on there, and that is B22. All right, so there it is. And that concludes steps 8 and 9. Okay, so with the completion of steps 8 and 9, I think I'm going to stop here because that was quite a lot of stuff going on with all of the sub-assemblies and all of the photo etch work. So I'm going to stop here and with the completion of the rear plate. So next time we'll pick up with step number 10, which starts with the front of the hull. So that is it for part number 3 of the Dragon SdKfz184 Elefant. If you liked the video, feel free to hit the thumbs up / like button. If you haven't yet and you'd like to, hit the subscribe button if you'd like to see more of this build or see any of the other builds that I have done in the past or might have going at the same time. So that's it. Thanks for watching Plastic Models by a Regular Dude, and until next time, I will see you all later.